So some experts believe genetically modified crops may be a solution to food insecurity in South Africa. And according to the World Health Organization, in Africa. According to the World Health Organization, over 340 million Africans were undernourished between 2014 and 2020. We're now joined by Professor Ademola Adenle, visiting Professor of Sustainability Science at the Technical University of Denmark. Prof, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. And so maybe let's start with a basic understanding of genetically modified food. What are we talking about?
Right, yeah, thank you for inviting me. Genetically modified organism has been used for more than 3 decades around the world. And of course, it's when you take a gene from one organism to plant DNA sequences in order to replicate the trait of that particular organism, either in making crop to be resistant to disease and pests, or to make it drought tolerant by fighting against climate change. But obviously, there has been a lot of controversy with regards to application of genetically modified organisms in Africa, and some of these reasons include the high cost regulation of GMO and the limited scientific capacity, and then, of course, EU stance on GMOs around the world. And that boils down to the political economy of GMO, because you want to ask a question: why is it that the new crop technology of green revolution was readily accepted when compared to that of genetically engineered crops? And then another question we'll be asking again is, why is it that there is political acceptance of agricultural biotechnology in some countries versus another countries? So, this boils down to the 2 reasons. You have the multinational and corporate profits, which are the economic driver of GMO in a number of countries, including United States. And you can imagine, about 4 countries dominating, the seed market of GMO and determine what is to be grown around the world. That has been part of the controversy. Another thing again is climate change, local economies, and the domestic food security play a critical role in weighing the use of GMO by a government in Africa. Those are the things you have to look at when it comes to application of GMO in developing countries around the world. There is no doubt GMO has not only helped improve global food security, it has helped save environment. GMO has contributed significantly to reduction of greenhouse gases around the world, and particularly in developing countries and developed countries that have been adopting GMO for the past 25 years. A recent study suggests that GMO has globally reduced the emission of 23.6 billion carbon monoxide from the atmosphere, and that is equivalent to removal of 15 million carbon from the road. That means GMO can help tackle global warming. So, of course,
Prof,
the controversy...
allow me to join you. I do beg your pardon for the purpose of time. So you speak of GMO reducing emissions in parts of the continent that it has been adopted. So we find Nigeria, Eswatini, Ethiopia, Malawi, Sudan, South Africa, and Kenya allowing commercial production and importation of GM products. But South Africa has been found wanting, no, when it comes to the issue of emissions?
I think in terms of, can you repeat that question again, please?
In terms of the countries, you're saying that GMO or this technology helps in reducing emissions. Did I understand you correctly?
That's correct. That's
a country
correct.
like South Africa allows the production and the importation of GM products. But when it comes to the emissions, more so on the continent, it has been found to be number 1. And so how should we understand that it helps reduce emissions, but you've also got countries on the continent that are not doing so well, that have adopted that technology?
Well, I think South Africa is doing very well because it's the largest producer of GMO in Africa, and South Africa has the scientific capacity that is equivalent to that of developed country. In terms of regulation, they have scientists and experts who are working on the issue relating to risk assessment before GMO are released for human consumption. So I think some other countries in Africa, they are struggling just because of lack of scientific capacity, high cost of regulation, as I mentioned earlier, and of course, public the public members saying GMO could cause cancer, etc., etc. So, the question is, how can we facilitate the application of GMOs in Africa? And that is why we need to engage all the key stakeholders coming on board to see what steps that should be taken to ensure that GMO are safe for human consumption. And that's one of the reasons I led the largest study in the history of GM agriculture in Africa in 2013. So this study actually looked at developing framework called fiber, feed, and food framework. So this F3 framework help adopt GM crop by adopting GM cotton, which is fiber, followed by GM feed for livestock, and GM food. So it allows scientists to carry out all the necessary risk assessment to ensure that GMO is safe for human consumption in Africa. And of course, it will help allay the concerns of the public and the farmers by familiarizing them with this new technology. And that's one of the reasons why I have F3 framework. And I must be honest to you, some countries in Africa, like Nigeria, has adopted GM cotton, and I'm quite aware of the fact that other countries like Ethiopia, Kenya have adopted GM cotton. These are one of the things we've done to ensure that the rest of countries in Africa can follow the F3 framework to facilitate the adoption of GM product. But of course, the most important thing here is to engage all the key stakeholders.
Yeah, indeed. When we talk about those who have presented resistance, especially on the continent, in the research that has been done or is being done, is there a full appreciation or understanding of the issue of hunger on the African continent? Is it just about hunger? Because we're also dealing with food wastage, but we also have a nuanced problem when it comes to infrastructure, for instance, when it comes to logistics as well on the continent. So is it just about hunger?
Well, it's not about, but let me just let you know that GMO are just technology. It's not a food system. They are not silver bullets to addressing hunger, climate change, or droughts. But it could be a part of solution to a wide range of problems in agricultural sector, including tackling food security problem and nutrition problem. And that's one of the reasons we have GMO, and it could help solve some of the problems. Because GMO, the genetic modification of crop has existed even since the birth of agriculture. It's just like other conventional crops. But of course, because of the controversy surrounding the safety of GMO, there has been a lot of argument about whether or not it's safe for human consumption in Africa, or whether Africa have the capacity to regulate the use of GMO in Africa. That has been one of the topic. Obviously is hotly debated. But of course, based on my finding, I guess one of the key reasons that is preventing the use of GMO in Africa is lack of scientific capacity, because you need the local evidence to inform decision making at national and regional level. I don't think we have that enough. It's only South Africa that is doing a fantastic job as far as regulation of GMO is concerned.
Okay. Prof, you also mentioned some of the disadvantages, and that would be a few companies holding power over food supply. We understand that only 4 companies in the United States own 60% of the seed market, which also causes a problem in terms of monopoly, market dominance, and people then doing whatever it is that they can do, right? And no one will be able to stop them. And so when we speak of this phrase, African solutions to African problems, are we, especially in the scientific community, looking at homegrown solutions, taking a look at some of the technologies that have existed in terms of indigenous knowledge systems in Africa that can take us forward, right, in terms of food security, because we're talking about food security, instead of importing some of these solutions?
Right, like I've said, GMA is part of the solution, but there are other problems that Africa needs to look at across value chain in agricultural sector, logistic infrastructure. So there are all these factors are critical to ensuring food security in Africa. So I believe Africa, I think it's important for Africa to pay attention to other aspects of agricultural production in terms of the technology that can be used to improve agricultural productivity, tackling climate change, and then increasing making crops more resistant to pests and diseases. I think they should look at that. So they should not just focus on GMO alone, but it's just because of the controversy surrounding the use of GMO around the world. That's why it has been attracting a lot of attention, from the media and international organizations. So, of course, we have, malnutrition problem in Africa. Can we find a technology that can help solve malnutrition problem? Of course, we can use GMO. We can use other technology. And if you look at the conventional biotechnology, which is what many African scientists have been using for many years. So you bring two crops. For example, you bring an apple that are sweet together. When you cross them, you expect to have sweeter, apple from the crossing of the two apples. But the problem with the conventional breeding is it can be time consuming. It can take years before you achieve your desired trait. So if you can find a technology that is more accurate, more precise, like GMO, gene editing, it can help make the process a lot faster and make it more accessible to farmers. But of course, the problem we are having now is GMO is highly regulated, and the cost that is associated with the regulation of GMO may not be affordable by farmers in Africa because it's largely controlled by the multinationals. So this is why government need to engage the multinational to work with the local scientists and create varieties that are locally relevant, that farmer can adopt and grow and make more money from it. Don't forget the fact that the GMO has obviously improved the level of incomes among farmers. If I could go back to the statistics, I think the total farm income benefit of GM technology is more than $135 billion among farmers in developing countries, compared to $125 billion in developed countries over the past 25 years. We should look at the socio-economic advantage of GMO and see what we can do to facilitate the use of GMO in Africa. And we need to engage, the owner of the technology to see how that technology can be transferred to Africa at much cheaper cost.
Oh my. Prof, thank you very much for your time. Professor Ademola Adenle, visiting Professor of Sustainability Science, Technical University of Denmark.